Hello, dear listener. Editor JT here. We're excited to announce that by the time you're listening to this episode, our fall merch drop will be live at deprogramshop.com. Whether you want a little Fidel peeking out of your frocket, a lovingly recreated Don't Tread on Me sticker, or Hakeem's patented theory-carrying tote, we've got you covered. The drop is live right now through October 15th, so go snag a hat before they're gone. All patrons will also receive a special discount because you're our favorite little piggies. Thanks for your support, enjoy the merch, and now on to the show.
Hello, ladies, gentlemen, and NBs. Today I am literally recording looking like a classic example of a quasi-Slavic businessman or whatever the fuck, sitting in my office shouting at my phone because I am an idiot that pretty much has the same headphones for like 10 or 12 years at this point. And right as we were supposed to record the episode, they just died on me. Then I continued to ravage the entire apartment behind me. There's literally like 15 girls' bags all over the floor because I remembered my partner has like AirPods, so maybe I could use those so that there's no echo while we actually fucking record. She's probably gonna murder me when she sees what I did to her like small closet. But we did the big brain play where I'm recording from a microphone, but in order for the voice not to be as loud of my two beautiful colleagues right here coming out of the computer, I'm actually talking to them on the phone. It reminds me of pretty much 99% of all my time I spent with my dad, which was basically him on the phone and me looking up at him. So I guess all that goes around comes around to an extent. That's the one perspective, and the other, as always, the most tortured class of podcasters needs to talk about how tortured they are and the things we do for you. This could have easily been postponed, etc., etc. But no, they need to get their content fill, and their content fill they shall get. Absolutely, especially my phone battery. You know how fucking bad it is for a phone to like be in a constant 1 hour conversation. And I have a fucking flip phone, so it has like half the fucking battery. So if you're thinking, oh my god, $20 on Patreon makes no fucking sense for these guys, I will most likely need to buy a new phone after this. That's $1,000 right there. So excuses. Headphones as well. Headphones, of course. I can't just go buy $15 headphones because I'm a professional podcaster. I am laundering Patreon money. No, I have to go buy $100 or $200 headphones. So there you go. This is how we siphon your hard-earned shit in order to be able to shout into a microphone. In this case, into a phone.
Amen, brother. Well, I will say, I have been using the same pair of Audio-Technica over-ear headphones since the beginning of my channel, and they've done really well. Like the ear cups, they're that fake leather stuff, and they're peeling to hell. So every time I take my headphones off, I've got these little black bits sticking to the side of my face, which does not count as blackface. It's not enough. But I can't recommend these enough. They're great. They have kept kicking all these years. I've thrown them. I've dropped them down the stairs. So Audio-Technica, don't remember the designation. They're like $40. Go nuts. But anyway, I'm very glad to be back. I missed the last 2 episodes, which is a first for me. I've missed, 1 or 2 here and there.
I was wondering why I was having so much fun. Like, what the fuck?
Okay.
I don't mean this. I do not mean this.
Don't make me turn this podcast around. I started this. I can end it.
Oh my God.
But the reason I was gone was because I was on a pilgrimage to the Holy Land of Chattanooga. This was my first time there, and I was enjoying it to the fullest. We were, my wife and I are actually trying to decide if we want to move there because Texas was all right, but now that we have a kid, there's just like not anything to do here in the suburbs. You got to drive 20 minutes to get anywhere. There's no nature stuff to do whatsoever. The only cool city is Austin, and that's 3.5 hours away.
You can shoot your neighbor, though.
That's true.
You can goad him to come over onto your lawn, and then you can the stand your ground law, defend your castle. What's it called?
It's called the stand your ground law or castle doctrine, which sounds really cool, but that's actually a time honored pastime here in Texas. We're like, hey, I bet you wouldn't say that over here on my porch. And you just try to coax him over and then shoot him. But yeah, Chattanooga was great. It was they have a cool aquarium,
like a tower defense game, like those flash games you played in 3rd grade.
Yeah, the plant one, Plants vs Zombies. Yeah. Angry
Birds are just fucking throwing chickens out. Anyways, yeah,
the great Great aquarium. I love aquariums. I sent the boys a picture of me in front of a really big crab. I was like, God should not make creatures this menacing. Like the crab was, the body was easily the size of my head, a little bit wider than my head, and then its spindly little limbs were all barbed and jagged and extended like, I don't know, 3 feet on each side. It was massive. I forget what kind of crab it was. But anyway, that was beautiful. Love Chattanooga. Nice mountains, friendly people, great bars, outdoor stuff, lots of nature trails, kayaking. Really cool place. Undervalued, I think.
I love how, like, from an actual unironic joke here at this show, which started a year and a half ago about us making fun of the name of the place, which turns out it's actually like a Native American name, so we're just being bigoted cunts. But at the end of the day, now you're actually migrating there. So maybe potentially, I love how how weird this fucking world is.
Yeah,
something that
make
is a joke turns into your home.
Yeah,
the hijra to the holy land of Chattanooga.
Yeah,
Dara Chattanooga. As we say, that's a very niche joke. I don't think anybody's gonna get it, but all right. Oh my god. Speaking of your lovely photo, by the way, I didn't even notice the crab because I was too busy being absolutely lost in your beautiful curly locks. You're a very beautiful man. I
didn't notice the eldritch horror emerging from behind my head. That thing is menacing.
I was too busy being absolutely. I was too busy losing circulation.
The crab was probably as well, man. I've been playing so much Baldur's Gate, and you can basically romance fucking anything that moves there. So nice. The crab right next to you. I mean, I'm like half a furry. Sometimes it can be interesting. Obviously not into the zoophilia bullshit, but a crab I wouldn't watch you get like railed by crab. What would that even look like? It's probably like made of
specifically JT getting railed by a crab, or
no, please.
Specifically JT, yeah. But even though JT can make like
it's a Patreon,
but a crab, I don't know.
Oh shucks,
you could get crabs. Oh my god, I should get shot for that.
Okay, you really should. But everybody, please do support us on Patreon, and we will eventually make it happen for your viewing pleasure.
No.
Oh my god. Well, speaking of what's it called, headphones at the beginning, not to outshine the boys, but the headphones that I'm using is a pair of Wish headphones that I got for probably less than $1 if you were to convert the currency. And I still use these. I plug these into my shitty fucking Blue Yeti microphone that I've had for years. Oh my god. Hey, this operation still somehow manages to work. I've noticed this. I've noticed this thing about me is that I'm incredibly stubborn about improving things for myself, like buying anything for. I will get work done. I will,
That's called just being a masochist. You are not stubborn about like it's masochistic. I genuinely, dear listeners, I genuinely think he enjoys it. He fucking loves it. He loves being extremely tired. He loves being uncomfortable. He loves life being just difficult, which shows to me that he definitely is at least 20% Slavic. Like it's this drive towards beautiful self-destruction, but not like the American type of self-destruction where you sit and you wallow in your own desperation and so on. Yeah. No, this one embraces it. This one still gets everything done while understanding that it could all be done much easier and quicker, but refusing to do so because the mountain is more important than the peak, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, exactly right. I'm Sisyphus, and I'm pushing the stupid fucking rock, which is new headphones.
Yo, it rolled down again. Yes!
Dear listeners, do you know when Yugopnik, who's very lovely, he recommended a fantastic table to me. I still record on my bed. I've graduated from underneath my bed to on top of my bed, by the way, because I stopped caring about the echo that you guys hear. And not the boys, specifically our listeners, but Yugopnik basically sat me down and was like, look, you don't need to treat yourself like this. Here's a very good option for a table. He must have told me this around 6 months ago. And the tab is still open, by the way. I just I'm looking at the tab.
Sicko.
It's open. I'll get it eventually.
You fucking animal, I swear to God.
Do you also have a length of knotted rope on your wall that you can just pick up and flagellate yourself with? Come on.
Oh my god. Yeah, no, it's
when you see a staircase, do you like climb the outside wall like Assassin's Creed because it's too difficult? Or God forbid an elevator. You probably like would burn up if you see an elevator.
Oh my god, honestly. Dude, do you know, by the way, yes, I'm one of those obnoxious people where every time I see an escalator, I'm like, no, not for me.
There you go. I wasn't even fucking kidding.
But I was gonna say, expanding on this point too. I remember this was when I was in med school, and I had for 8 months straight. I would have this weird chest pain, and this was early enough in my medical career, or like being a med student, that I didn't realize that it was just a musculoskeletal. It was nothing to worry about. But for those entire 8 months, I was like, "What the fuck is this? Is this cardiac? Like cardiac in origin?" And people would be like, "Go to the doctor, do something." And then finally, after 8 months, I go, and it was nothing, obviously. But yeah.
Laziness often rewards. I don't mind that. I am the king of laziness. That's exactly
you and
my criticism
rotted
of
tooth.
Yeah, a rotted tooth and 60-hour days working that godforsaken firm. God, Habibi.
Yeah,
we need to get you out of there.
Actually, speaking of the tooth, I now have for at least like a year, my wisdom teeth coming out, and like my back left down wisdom tooth came out, but the other one, he was 70% still inside, and he was really, really struggling. I was like, obviously, I need to go to the dentist, and I ignored it for 3-4 months, and it pushed through. And now it's there, and it's a perfectly fine, healthy tooth. I just completely ignored it. It hurt like a bitch, but it pushed through, and now it's really nice. And when I bite stuff, I have an extra tooth, and I'm super fucking happy about it. If I went to a fucking dentist, he would be like, okay, for me to check it, it's $30, but for me to pull it out, it's probably $150 from the state coffer. So I would be with one less tooth now. I risk potentially literally inflaming the entirety of my mouth and probably getting some fucking thing like throat cancer. But now, there you go. The risk was worth it. I have a completely useless tooth in the back of my mouth. So there you go, you motherfucking hygienic cunts.
I'm just here vibrating. Like when you quoted me those prices. No, those prices. You know what it costs to get a wisdom tooth out here? One single tooth?
$4,000.
It's not that. It's not that bad. No, it's depending on if it's impacted or something where it can't come out fully. That's about $1,100 per tooth, but that's on the high end. So yeah, so about $4,000 for all of them.
Dude, do you know how much it cost? I'm not gonna tell you. This wasn't here. I had one wisdom tooth removed. I ended up not actually needing to have it removed. I had one removed, and it was in one of Yugopnik's nondescript lands. And I think it cost me. This was, by the way, this is a private clinic. I was like, I want to just get the absolute best treatment, because it was fucking me up, and I had to get it done quickly. So I wanted the date right, like the next day. And I went and I got it done, and the person was super professional, and she was a fantastic, she was a surgeon, by the way. She was that then moved and double specialized, became this. It's complicated. Anyways, I think all in all, it cost me like $50.
Jesus.
Everything from the beginning to end, the private treatment, everything. It was. She did do a really good job. The thing was fucking hard in there. She had to split my tooth in two and finally get it out. But yeah, it was a fantastic treatment. 10 out of 10. Would do again. I hope I don't need to, but
that's why when people visit, they like additionally also go and get like checkups and so on, especially from the West. So JT Hakim, you got it covered in your territory. But JT, when you come and visit me, I'm obviously gonna organize all the traveling and clubbing and eating. But then there's gonna be 3 days where you just go from surgery to surgery and get fucking everything fixed.
I make all your appointments.
Yeah,
I tell you what to say.
Slavic cyberpunk JT coming out of the fucking thing with
replace my eyes.
Speaking of which, though, I hope every single person who's listening gives a round of applause as well as immense appreciation for public dental care. I don't know if it exists in the US, but exists, I'm sure, in many other countries. It is a godsend. Public dental care. These people are God's work that they're doing. They're absolutely fantastic, and these people are burdened more than you can imagine with how much work that they have to do. That's why they're always backed up. That's why it's hard to get a time up, but they're all fucking excellent.
I don't know anything about medical history, but aren't we basically like in the last 100 years the first motherfuckers who don't have like rotting teeth and shit?
Not necessarily, actually. Lots of cultures outside of Europe had different levels of basically dental care, or examples of dental care, which included basically abrasive methods to maintain, like, get rid of plaque, as well as different sorts of interdental cleaning. So it is a very grain-eating European thing to have absolutely rotted and like teeth down to the nubs. That's not to say that people had good dental hygiene compared to nowadays, but it was relatively better. For example, a good example from our regions in like Arab and Muslim land specifically is the siwak, which is basically think of it as a toothbrush essentially, and this has been used for more than the past 1,000 years.
Huh.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. But basically, George Washington invented the dentistry, though, when he took the teeth of his slaves. A man really fighting for the freedom of all.
What a guy. Well, there you go. Pour one out for public dentists. Pour out a cup
the
of
OG
teeth.
dentist, George Washington. Yeah.
George Washington.
Hello and welcome everyone to yet another episode of the Deprogram. Today we are not featuring a guest, but someone who we would absolutely never want to have as a guest. A internationally acclaimed, horrible comedian, wannabe journalist, and rightoid talking head Steven Crowder. We wanted to do something relatively different for our show, but something relatively classic for especially the left-wing YouTube experience, which is basically take a right-wing figure and try to figure out what the fuck is wrong with them. So let's get right started. Let's get started. Sorry, it's very weird when I'm holding the fucking phone on my ear. It feels very strange because I'm talking to the microphone, but my mouth keeps moving to the left and I see the phone and I stop thinking. Apologies. So, most listeners probably know about Crowder's failed attempted comedy at the earlier stages of his career. But I don't think they know just how bad it got, even for early 2010s comedy. I tortured myself for you to actually find some of it, and it's as bad as you would fucking think. Extremely forced, punching down type of shit, obsessing with how dumb them broads are and how funny them foreigners sound. We'll see this style of so-called comedy dominate his career throughout his life as the little demon in him continues to irritatingly remind him that he's not all that funny or all that good or all that informed. In his later career, he was famously in the same room, as an example, with Amy Schumer, who I'm also not a big fan with, but who I think told him something along the lines of, "You're not a comedian just because you did it a few times, mate. I like to fish from time to time. Doesn't make me a fisherman." Crowder would, of course, go to pretty much make over 20 videos and entire specials about Amy in the later course of his life, just a tiny smidge to show us just what type of dude this guy really always deep down inside was. We're talking about a guy who's probably continuously told by his, by the way, Canada-based parents at the time, like the dude pretty much grew up in Canada, but he's this big American nationalist. Why is this always the case? Like there's always guys from somewhere else. You know, Hitler's from fucking
complex.
Austria.
They're not us. They want to be us. They're not. They hate us because they ain't us.
Exactly. Yeehaw, baby. Fucking Canadians coming over here ruining the country, but unironically, like half of fucking rightoids are not from it, but okay. But yeah, his Canada-based parents probably from a very early age continuously told him that he's a very special boy, starting him out actually on an unsuccessful path of becoming a child star. His identity, in my opinion, likely formed at that age, solidifying his real belief that he was very, very unique. And we all know a person or two like this, but they don't talk to tens of millions of people. So he was told that he was very, very unique with this sort of unrecognized superiority, ended up following him his whole life, leading him in particular in a market that doesn't really, get any comedians, a market which at the time was struggling to pitch its ideas both to the youth and to refresh itself in front of the elderly. The American troglodyte society, the Republican Party. But we are getting ahead of ourselves. Let's learn a little bit more about how chowding with crowding actually started off and his early life. JT, please take it away, brother.
You betcha, partner. Well, on a dark and stormy night in what would become known as the worst disaster to ever befall Detroit, Michigan, one Stephen Blake Crowder was born.
His middle name is Blake. Fuck off, no.
Yeah,
it's not Blake.
The cards are stacked against him from the beginning.
NPC, yes.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, anyway, legend has it that little Steve didn't cry when he came out, but rather launched into a 12-minute stream of perfectly pronounced racial slurs, a feat that the doctor claims hasn't occurred before or since. Stephen was born to a French-Canadian mother, strike one, and a Californian father, strike two. When Stephen was 3, the family moved to a Montreal suburb, where little Steve added phrases like, "Oh, I'd have a dart," to his repertoire. His childhood passed, as far as we know, uneventfully. At 12, he had a brief stint as the voice of Brain on the TV show Arthur. Did you guys watch Arthur? Did you have Arthur?
I know of it. I never watched
the
it.
animals.
I know of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They know of it. Yeah.
Yeah, he voiced the nerdy character for 2 of the show's 25 seasons. So, side note.
Oh my god.
Yeah, I watched Arthur as a kid, and if you had asked me when it ended, I would have guessed like, I don't know, 2005 or something. But no, season 25 premiered in the year of our Lord 2022. For those of you who want to pick up where you left off, it has been confirmed that season 25 is going to be the last season of Arthur. So pour one out for Arthur. He's been in 3rd grade for 25 years now.
So that's why Steven is losing his shit all the time recently in the last year and a half.
After his illustrious run as a cartoon bear, he began to dabble in stand-up comedy at 17. And by dabble, I mean absolutely eat shit. He moved to the United States a year later, presumably because he was exiled for his jokes by the good people of Quebec. But back in the States, Stephen attended 2 semesters of college in Burlington, Vermont. And I assume Burlington local Bernie Sanders got wind that a major piece of shit had blown into town and personally heckled him at his attempted comedy shows, which I would pay to see, because Bernie is a crotchety old man, and I would love to see him just piss on Crowder from the crowd. But Crowder did continue to attempt comedy in college, by the way, apparently, and this is according to Crowder, so take it with a grain of salt. One of his professors laughed it off and told him that he'd never be a true comedian. So this strikes me as one of those, oh, well, look at me now stories, which is really cringe because, as we all know, Crowder is still not a comedian and has been told so, as we've heard, by actual comedians. He's just a painfully unfunny loser with an audience of senile Vietnam vets who really hate their wives. After college, and he didn't graduate, by the way, all of his biographies kind of sweep that under the rug. They just say he attended Champlain College. And that's not to, denigrate people who don't graduate college. This guy just... He's always harping on like the value of Western education and stuff, and homie dropped out. So after college, he landed a gig at Fox News. Presumably some low-paid intern saw one of his comedy routines and thought, hey, that's just the kind of guy we need to really get the elderly excited. So he worked at Fox from 2009 to 2012, while also posting what could generously be considered political satire videos to conservative media outlets, including the cutting-edge pajamas media. Then in 2011, Funny Steve, as I'm told he liked to call himself, got his big break.
Oh.
He got to MC the most anticipated event of 2011, besides probably the release of Minecraft. CPAC.
FurryCon?
Yeah, FurryCon. Honestly, I would not be surprised. And no one would know he was there because he'd be in his, turtle suit or whatever. He's not cool enough to be like a fox or a wolf. He'd go as a wolf. Oh my God, he'd go as a fucking wolf. Anyway. Yeah, he got to MC CPAC, the Conservative Political Action Committee. And the rest, as they say, is history. Except it's a really shitty history because we're still stuck with this guy for probably another 50 years. He's only 36. Anyway, that's Stephen Crowder's early life and the beginning of his rise into the Mount Olympus of conservative media. A true titan of comedy, a brilliant mind, a sparkling intellect, and God, I can't wait to hear more about him. Go ahead, boys, take it away.
Absolutely. Even while he was at Fox for a while, most of his colleagues that later talked about him pretty much mentioned that he was absolutely insufferable. There are unconfirmed chat screenshots from one of the big heads over at Fox where he's talking about how he constantly kept mentioning his wife and how hot she is, and he needed approval of other dudes to confirm with him that his wife is hot enough for him to continue dating. This especially is weird when it's balanced out with his very staunch rhetoric about how you should never have sex before marriage, and how you need to live a particular life in order to bring towards you a woman who is not, basically, he doesn't use those terms, but basically what he considers a degenerate. Not saying that there's anything wrong in keeping celibacy until marriage, but obviously saying that there is only one path is correct in this thing, and that people who want to make love to each other are fucked up is fucked up by itself, but also shows kind of his relationship not to the idea of celibacy, but pretty much to the idea of hardcore anxiety about potential sexual experiences of his partners, etc., etc. Even at CPAC that JT mentioned, where he emceed the event and so on. I try to watch parts of it that are relatively available online. The jokes continue in the same kind of pattern that he possesses, which is, I guess exactly 2011 Reddit humor at this point, which is, the blacks or the gays. He had one that was like, why are people confused that you react weirdly to gays? If like a duck walked in here right now, everybody would be like, "Oh, what is a duck doing at CPAC?" So when a gay guy goes, "Oh, hey girl, you're looking fine," it's normal for us to react very intensely. The type of, you can already notice like the brain cells necessary for this sort of attempted humor are basically what we all heard 700,000 times our typical bros and so on, especially during that time, talk about and mention and constantly spout, which again leads us to, I think, a very based in reality conclusion that this guy really thought he was special, because otherwise you wouldn't think, okay, me just doing relatively not mild but extremely cliche bro humor on stage, how is that is going to land me, specifically me, in the in the big leagues, even though you hear shit like that on a daily. So this hardcore egoism that this man possesses, as you will see as we talk about his story, continues throughout his many different stages. When he was kicked off of Fox News, as JT said, he went through a couple of different websites, but where his stuff was hosted, but that's when he started kind of basically realizing that he needs an independent platform only for himself, where no matter where he goes, if he gets kicked off of any other platform, he will have his kind of hub. And that's when the YouTube started really developing. And at one point he after getting kicked off of another show / channel, which is something conservative, something nobody gives a fuck, he fully focused on his Crowder show. But in that era, also before that era and after that era, he had many little interesting experiences. He's very famous, for example, for being the second most satisfying punched guy on the internet, right after, if you remember, Richard Spencer, Pepe getting fucking pummeled. I think I watched that thousands of times. This motherfucker actually unironically went and helped organize a protest against a protest where, union leaders were protesting, a very fucked up law which will basically lead us into the gig economy of today. You can work through an app without a contract, blah, blah, blah. They went to protest the protest, which is just incredibly American thing to do. And obviously he got the shit kicked into him after a bit of a kind of fisticuffy moment between those like conservatives and union members. Obviously a video was recorded of that, and he conveniently cut the part of the video where the union member got pushed by someone from it, so that it looks like Crowder got assaulted very directly. He wanted to press charges like a proper little bitch that he is.
Yeah.
He he sent it to the police and so on. And guess what? The law enforcement agency stopped the procedure, even though they very intensely started in the beginning, but they stopped it once certain journalists sent them videos that show the entirety of the situation. But of course, coppers being coppers, they were jumping at any opportunity to arrest some good old union members. But anyways, back on track. Crowder migrates more of his efforts to YouTube and starts, as I previously mentioned, specifically Louder with Crowder, which decent name, right? Not bad, kind of balances and so on.
It's easy.
I can live with it.
But yeah, we can give him points for, rhyming. So, remember, he wasn't that educated, so a rhyme is big for him.
Exactly. He definitely couldn't call it laughing with Crowder because nobody does that when they listen to him.
Got him.
But he was, in my opinion, kind of telling what you think, but a consequence of the era, because when he started doing his type of shit, it was right at the beginning of the 2014, 15, 16 anti-SJW craze, and it lasted, in my opinion, all the way up to the 2020s. If the internet had to have a quote-unquote dark age, in my opinion, that would be it. And he jumped on the crazy bandwagon of, feminista owned, she has blue hair and is not hot, haha, which is unironically what he kept referring to feminists at. He was like, show me a hot feminist and, I'll change my mind about those B words. But it ended up making our boy millions, most likely, which led him to his next brilliant idea, which pretty much catapulted him to the stars, which is something most of you were most likely, unfortunately, very aware of, called Change My Mind. Our boy would prepare deeply on a topic, then he would go to a college campus and totally jump unaware, tired, hangover, coffee-deprived uni students and basically tear them liberals a new one for the viewing pleasure of the unwashed hordes of his conservative viewership who had to get their rocks off at seeing these supposed liberal intellectual kids get demolished so that they can feel nice and warm about their choice in life of staying in their shithole town and probably fucking their cousins. And I say this as a small town boy, but not a cousin fucker. Very proud. I am messed up, but every time I open a porn site and there's like cousin fucks or stepsister, I cringe and I wince. Really, really not my thing. Not judging. Okay, I'm judging you a bit, but yeah. Anyways, this shit, suffice to say, was posted at the right time and in the right format, leading to our good boy over here becoming basically a beacon of the right-wing media consumer YouTube conglomerate. Even though Ben Shapiro kind of started the right-wing debate pro, this guy took it to another level because he managed to find how to churn out content much faster. While Ben Shapiro had to be invited to give speeches and so on, this guy actually went to the colleges himself. So he positioned himself right next to Shabibo, next to Candace Owens, which, like, by the way, today I was trying to remind myself of Candace's name, and I just Googled conservative black woman, and she was like literally all the first 5 results. So Google, either that's the only conservative black woman or Google knows its shit or knows me. But yeah, Crowder was riding some fine-tuned high waves up until the current popularity crisis, where just as it was to be expected, this guy turned out to not be anything alike what kind of man he espouses everyone is supposed to be. For example, the wait until marriage before slogging, family values, patriotism, kind of rhetoric turned out to be pretty much pretense. The special boy who wasn't special at all turns out doesn't only verbally lash out like a fucking child on his own show towards pretend enemies of the conservative conservative Uberreich. No, he apparently also does that at home. And that's exactly where, for example, his divorce, which he is currently going through, comes in. And more importantly, heavy infighting with other members of the conservative media complex, which is kind of beautiful to watch. They said that only left-wingers infight, so I guess this makes Steven Crowder basically a of the far right. Which leads us into kind of the meat of today's story, which is, even though his whole career is basically filled with different moments of crisis and different scandals, but the meat of today's story, where we will kind of pick and choose some of the spiciest and most interesting ones. Hakeem, take us off with some of the ones that you found very, very peculiar.
Sure. I would love to. Something that immediately stood out to me about this guy, which is he loves to be very masculine presenting, very, you know, he's a manly man and super straight and not at all, any various slur that he would like to use to describe, that the other side. But he does a lot of cross-dressing, like a surprising amount.
Yeah,
you think that he would cross-dress once or twice. This guy has like at least a dozen different times when he put on a wig and a fucking dress and went out and like with his hairy legs out. And I get that he's trying to make a point, but I love that one of his like far right buddies basically who joined him on something and then like denounced him afterwards. The guy is still far right, but he just doesn't like Crowder anymore. He said, "I thought we were going to be fighting against like the Jews and the woke crowd and this and that, but every day it was just us like fucking like dressing up and like wearing dresses and wigs." And then I was like, who are we? Basically he used the stupid like woke fucking gets dunked on, all that bullshit. He's like, who are we destroying exactly? Who are we dunking on aside from ourselves by making this silly caricature?
And it's often sketches where he doesn't need to like change his clothes into a woman. At least 50-60% of them would absolutely work. I mean, they wouldn't work ever, but they would kind of work for the conservative fucking mind flayer, even if he wasn't wearing that particular dress. So I don't know if it's like him, deep down inside really liking that stuff, which God bless, I guess. Or number two, like literally like we're continuing like childhood humor, like I dressed up like a woman. So funny.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
But I know a lot of people who I would personally consider to be very traditionally masculine. And not one of them has ever dressed up or cross-dressed in that way. Likewise, I know a lot of people who would consider themselves very progressive. They too, I've never seen, or at least I don't know of, them cross-dressing. But this
jumping
dude
at the opportunity of doing it,
yeah, exactly right. But this guy who's again Mr. Macho, Mr. Masculine, has seemingly taken every possible chance to under the guise of irony and trying to make fun of it. Which is again, it's kind of like it strikes me as it's not gay. We have our socks on. This is kind of what it strikes me as. But whatever. All right then.
He's either a child and just doing it because he genuinely thinks it's funny, or he's secretly Stella Crowder, and in which case we welcome you, Stella. Just denounce those stupid beliefs you have.
Another thing that is very, very common with him is he likes to be very racist, but it's in such an on-the-nose way that to me it doesn't strike me as a genuine belief. It strikes me as a way of trying to elicit a reaction. At least maybe that's just the vibe I'm getting.
Interesting.
I'm sure that he himself is at least slightly racist, but he goes to comical levels of it, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe JT, you live in the belly of the beast, so maybe you have a different perspective. But to me, from what I've seen, like real racism tends to be very insidious, right?
Yeah.
Like they will still kind of smile at your face, but they're gonna have fucked up beliefs, and they can do something against you and discriminate against you based on your race, even in an institutional way. Usually in an institutional way, that's the way it goes. Racism is very maybe it's this is like my perspective as a non, I'm not an African American in the U.S., for example, but I can imagine the Arabs there also get a lot of racism. The guy who's like, oh, go back to your country, blah blah, that's a lot less damaging. It's annoying, of course, but it's a lot less damaging than the dude who will reject you for a job opportunity because of your race. Right. But anyways,
fully act on it. His is just like typical they're weird, they're strange. I don't particularly like them. I find them funny. I find them whatever fucked up, and maybe they don't have a place in our society, etc. But I wouldn't go on and put them in camps type of racist. Yeah.
Racists here are soft. I think they enjoy the stuff that Crowder does because this is the stuff that is societally unacceptable to do. Whereas something like you said, Hakeem, like throwing a resume in the trash because it has a racial sounding name, that can be swept under the rug as, he wasn't qualified as the other guy. Like it's obviously not true, but there is an excuse for it. Whereas, calling someone a racial slur, there is no excuse for that really. So I think that's why they gravitate towards it, because they want to do that stuff, but they can't.
Yeah. So they do exactly right. So they do the impotent but very eye-catching, like racism.
Right.
Again, the two different definitions of what impotent could be. Of course, somebody could feel very bad by hearing this stuff, blah, blah, blah. There is a history of... there's a lot of nuance to this discussion, but that's my way of seeing his racism is it's clearly trying to get a reaction. Mm-hmm. He's not being racist for... Like, Stephen Molyneux is racist for just racist sake.
Yeah.
He's not doing it to get a reaction.
That was a fucking throwback, bro.
Yeah.
Stephen fucking Molyneux, man. Why did you bring that thing back into my brain? Oh, Lord. Now I'm vibrating.
What happened to that guy?
I don't know. He got knocked off of YouTube, and now he makes videos where he's like, actually, apartheid South Africa was good for the blacks. That's basically what he... And he literally will do like an hour-and-a-half video trying to show, it's ridiculous, yeah. Anyways... One of the videos that he does these incredibly racist stereotypes of African Americans because of some policy of like funding for black farmers or something. And he does like, very stupid, like hacky 90s like comedian, right? Like, I'm gonna tap that ass. And a bad African American accent, what would be considered one, because there are many different dialects across the United States. All this bullshit, right? Surprisingly, for a very short period of time, YouTube suspended his ability to earn ads on his channel because of some stuff. But then they went, actually, it's fair. It's fair. It's what's it called? Free speech, and he was able to do it again. Right. He also has done a fully uniformed recreation of the killing of George Floyd to supposedly prove that George Floyd didn't die because of a cop's knee on his neck, and the video is still up. So yes.
That's unbelievable.
It was very uncomfortable on my leg, but there is no way that I could have been killed from this.
The insane part about this stuff is that that his channel is, as far as I know, still monetized. He's still making, I think the estimate I saw was $80,000 a month off of AdSense.
Yeah. Just ads alone, by the way. He has 1,000 other streams of revenue, but just ads alone more than... Anyways,
Yeah, and the people who put up videos are like, hey... here's a clip from this guy's channel. This is wrong. Here's why it's wrong. Those get demonetized, which is it's insane.
Moving on, Crowder seems to, I guess we touched on this a bit earlier, he doesn't get along with other right-wing chuds, which is surprising. The point that Yogopnik brought up, which was very right, it's like, they got a lot of infighting. It's not, I guess, as highlighted, or maybe as animated as left-wing infighting, but they do love to infight. And we're like, you're not theoretically pure enough. My ancient text from fucking 83 years ago from some overweight Italian guy says that you're not a real socialist. Meanwhile, these people are like, you're not white enough for me. You're Irish, German,
millions,
or in this case, like you don't allow me, you hurt my profit motive. So in a way, it's the capitalist will sell
the market,
us,
baby. The market is what's going to bring down.
No, it's absolutely incredible. He after getting some criticism regarding his potential divorce, actually before getting criticism for his divorce, after admitting he was getting divorced, he got in a lot of shit by calling out a so-called conservative company that wanted to sign a contract with him for being extremely greedy and being in line with what he calls the media industrial complex, that the main reason his show exists is to fight the media industrial complex. And this company apparently told him that in case he gets demonetized again completely, he would have to actually get a pay cut of 25%, which not tap the back of a fucking conservative media company, but it's a pretty great fucking deal. Basically, most of their streams of income would disappear, and they would cover 75% of that cost. But for a while, he was saying, I'm not going to mention which company it is. But basically, he fucked with the wrong motherfuckers. Basically, the Titan, the future of Fox, which is Daily Wire, turned out it was, and the big boss, together with Shapibo of the Daily Wire, responded relatively rationally for a right-wing chud, and he was like, dude, like, this is a business, we run this as a business, which again shows you very directly why these people do this. So us covering 75% is a great fucking deal, etc., etc. Steven Crowder lost his shit about that and started posting some recorded phone calls, which, by the way, apparently everybody says that he records absolutely every phone call that he has. But in those phone calls, the Daily Wire people looked much better than he thought that they would look like. And at that point, once that sort of provocation was extended, the Daily Wire media complex, which he's now fighting very intensively, which he says that is in cahoots with big media and big money and a lot of conservatives. Like, you would listen to Steven Crowder and be like, man, he's right about to get it. He says stuff like, there's so, like, most conservative spokespeople just want to get money out of you. They are feeding off of your insecurities in order for them to sell you more shit, etc., etc. I'm like, oh my God, like, come on now, like, welcome to the movement or whatever. But then he spins around and he's like, but that's because they're corrupted by the media industrial complex, which wants to destroy America and family values. I'm like, oh, Jesus fucking Christ, great.
Very based.
But yeah, so he absolutely, so the Daily Wire basically really organized around him using their two greatest tools at their disposal, which is Candace Owens, obviously, and Ben Shabibo, and they have been tearing him a new one, like fucking hard, man. Yeah. This man no longer sees
actually
respect.
Kind of fun, yeah. It's actually kind of funny the level that they didn't need to really, but they dug in deep.
They dug in deep and went personal, right? Sorry for interrupting, because like, it's super interesting how personal they go. Like, obviously, left-wing infighting, sometimes we mention, you're fat and you look like this and blah, 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 okay. But there, because there's no ideology. I mean, there is ideology there, but you know what I mean. There's no
honor amongst thieves. Is what you're trying to say.
But there's no school of thought, right? So you can't go and you say, I don't like Crowder because he has this and this perspective of the traditional family, or on the free market, etc., etc. Like the libertarian imbeciles get in a fight when another libertarian says, I actually think people should get driver's licenses, right, before getting a car. So they don't attack each other based on that, because they basically believe the same shit, and most of them don't even believe the same shit. They just are in it for the fucking cash. So they have to do personal attacks, right, because there's no other type of attack that they can really do. And personal attacks get very, very spicy. I'm gonna leave it off to you, Hakeem, just before this one, like, because obviously Crowder is right now going through a very tough divorce, and he's blaming everything on the wife, which we'll talk about later. But Candace Owens comes out and says, yo, this dude like was hitting up my DMs much before, when he was saying that he is still with his wife, etc., etc., before he started talking that they're potentially divorcing. So this dude is just a classic fucking Nimrod. But it's interesting that other rightoids are showing just how big of a Nimrod he is.
Well, it's weird to see them do that, because normally they're pretty unified.
They're bad for each other.
Yeah, because they've got some very core pillars that they all agree upon no matter what, so they don't have this constant bickering that we have on the left. And there's some of it, like you see here, but like this, when you get right down to it, they just look bad, because they are splitting hairs over, multi-tens of millions of dollars of like contracts, which is just gross, even to the conservatives who would watch this stuff. It's like, man, you got offered $50 million. That's more money than any of us will make in multiple lifetimes. And you're complaining? Like, what? This is so, you're shooting yourselves in the foot, both Daily Wire and this loser, over oh no, I'm not getting paid my worth, which is how many tens of millions of dollars more would it require? It's like, it's just, it seems like a misstep, which, so I feel like, are we missing something? Is this a ploy? Are we being 4D chessed? But I think these people are just being like petty and stupid this time.
Something that is missing from this conversation, I think JT just mentioned it, is that the deal that he turned down, which he called a slave contract, he was always big tech censorship, it was $50 million.
Yeah.
And by the way, the details that he had an issue with was that essentially it was a 4-year contract. It was non-binding, number one, and number two, included in the text, like Binnos verbatim, included in the text, an optional 2-year extension at the rate of an additional $25 million. So this guy is looking at, for a, 4 to 6 to 8 years, roughly, depending on how they calculate it at the end, he's looking to be on the earning end of $75 million fucking dollars. $75 million for a guy who makes the lowest rung of garbage to be posted on YouTube.
Any of us could make that. We could do that today and do it more convincingly and funnier than he could.
Yeah, but this is the thing that is, like, my point being is, look at the insane funds these people get thrown at them for literal garbage, dog shit, disinformation that can be disproven with a single Google search. It's mind-boggling, and that's why I hate the fucking, like, oh, George Soros and the fucking left, and all of it is always projection. No, I promise you, nobody, even the fucking the biggest possible, like, left-wing figure, and I mean real left, not fucking, you know, somebody who dresses up in fancy wigs and has nice lighting and makeup. And even those people, the most lukewarm of lukewarm social democrats, do not get paid these amounts of money, right, for the bullshit they make. Yeah, and it's, oh Lord. And then people will come and bullshit us, being like, "Oh yeah, well you get Patreon, like you people support you on Patreon." Fuck,
tired you have 2,000 people support us.
Dude, I don't have the Koch brothers, however the fuck you say it, the Koch brothers. I don't have fracking billionaires raining money on me to make YouTube garbage. Okay, speaking with YouTube, oh my god, like again, I don't know if most people have actually bothered to watch his videos, Crowders. I've had the displeasure of sitting just through a few, and it really is the bottom of the barrel stuff. Like, I say this with a very heavy heart. Ben Shapiro's stuff, is better quality. Like research wise, but it's still garbage.
It is. Yeah, it is. They have better writers. They have absolutely everything. Yeah. Steven Crowder right now is hiring like absolutely fucking crazy, and nobody really wants to work with him, even in that industry. I mean, he's trying to build basically another Daily Wire because he feels like he's ostracized from the Daily Wire, so he wants to create a counter project, etc., of the real right wing versus the other right wing. Really reminds me of the left. Like, we are the real left. We have the right, word after Marxist. The more words after Marxist you have, the righter you are. Sorry, please. Yeah.
Crowder's Fourth International. What you saying, JT?
I was just saying, I wonder if we're going to see a consolidation here among the media right. Like, has Ben Shapiro's Daily Wire, have they won? Is that the end of it? Is everything going to have to coalesce around Daily Wire now and become subsidiaries of that? If, like, this is how they treat, I guess they see them as competitors. I don't know.
I think it's the aspiration. I think it's like any up-and-coming conservative, like dipshit, will aspire to eventually be signed with the Daily Wire, because that's where all the money and advertising and power is. Like, they'll be able to move stuff for you.
I guess you got PragerU as well,
Yeah, but it's all under the fucking same umbrella. All these people get funded from the same sources.
Yeah.
That being said, though, if anybody, because you just mentioned that Crowder's hiring right now. If any of you were like, hey, you know what? He does have millions of dollars to throw around. Maybe I'll go work for him. Just listen to this. After the stuff that was coming out with his wife divorcing him. Of course, this is like very sensitive, like personal life stuff. We're not getting all sides, blah blah. But it's uncomfortable to be peering into this life. Maybe he's fucking mentally ill. I don't know. So this is one aspect that I'm like, he's abusing his wife, and that's fucked up, and she should leave, and he should, be rightfully ostracized for it, or whatever the appropriate, treatment is according to the courts and all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, I think a lot of people are focused on this point, and it's kind of a weak, like, character point. He is a bad person because of so much other stuff, right? And to just go on this point, I think it weakens our analysis, and it weakens the drive, I guess, of the point.
People just love personal hypocrisy, and that's what sticks out.
Yeah, and I agree. Yeah, but there's also a lot of bitter divorced people who
true.
may look at this and maybe they'll disagree with Crowder, but then they'll see how he's being treated in the media and be like, oh well, I don't think that I was maybe they weren't abused or whatever the fuck, or were abusers, whatever, and they got out of their relationship or they were left, and then as a result they begin to sympathize with him despite disagreeing with him, and they create this, I do understand, like, the personal hypocrisy is very true. He's not embodying the morals that he claims to have, and that's something that should be rightfully criticized. But
it's not only that. His perspective towards divorce is like he unironically believes that a wife should not be able to physically or legally leave her husband. Like, he's like fascistic fucking ideology. Like,
yeah, but then the reason he's like that is because otherwise that's the only way he'd be able to keep down a wife, both literally and figuratively. It's horrible, yeah. But my point being, this is kind of like to summarize it. It's a very common right-wing tactic to go after like character like that. Sometimes
like a Martin Luther King. Yeah,
exactly right. It doesn't. It's better to go at the core of the ideology or the points and perspectives that he's bringing forth, because if Crowder goes away, then he goes away, but the perspectives can be said by anybody else. So if you target the perspectives and break those down, then you kind of take this weapon out of the hands of all the fucking chuds that exist. But if you just criticize the one guy on his personality flaws, then you're bringing the one guy down. Do you understand my point?
Cutting one head off a Hydra. He's just a mouthpiece.
Exactly right. Anyways, moving on. For the people who would be like, oh, maybe I'll work for him for 2 months and then I'll get out. After this, he sent crazy non-disclosure agreements to people who were working under him, which included like $100,000 breach of contract penalties, all nonsense, right? And he was like, oh, you have until tomorrow to sign it. And basically he kind of tried to, what's the word in English? Intimidate them by being like, oh, if you don't sign it, then that's how I'll know that you've been talking to some journalist or something about me. He began interrogating his staff because he had some media leaks that exposed abusive behavior at work, which, by the way, let me just mention a few things. I'm going to quote, the abusive behavior at work included allegations of bullying, inappropriate drug use, and lewd sexual workplace misconduct. Crowder responded to this point with something that I want JT to clarify, please. Crowder said to sexual workplace misconduct, he said, if you're not okay with guys playing sack tap, then this isn't the place for you. Could you please explain to me what fucking sack tap is?
All right, sure. So you're standing next to your boys, right? All right, okay. You side by side, shoulder to shoulder. What you do?
And I'm the weird guy on this podcast.
You take your if your homie's on your right, you take your right hand and you backhand him in the balls, just real quick, just like slap, like you flick your wrist and hit him in the balls, and it really hurts.
I see.
That's sack tap. Apparently, it's a game. It was like a high school thing for maybe like half a year that I remember. Like, oh, we got you, bro, in the locker room, stuff like that. But like to do it as a 36-year-old adult in the workplace, it's just bizarre.
I got you, bro. Now let me do it open palm. Now let me cup your balls, bro. You got beautiful foreskin, bro.
But he did show his dick to a lot of people and his balls.
Yeah, and that's what I'm getting to. That's what I'm going to. And I'm quoting again. Crowder regularly engaged in unhinged tirades, forced subordinates to wash his dirty laundry, and even exposed his genitals to coworkers. Several of the sources claim they firsthand witnessed Crowder exposing himself. He climbed over and dropped his junk on top of Jared's shoulder, one ex-staffer said. Critical support for Jared.
Yeah, that's horrible, but that's so funny.
Dropped his junk.
What did he climb over?
I don't
imagine him scuttling over like a cubicle wall, like Smeagol or something.
Jesus Christ. This doesn't get better, by the way. He went on to hire a guy with a stupid fucking name, Michael Spadone. Maybe Spadone, maybe he's Italian, but he's a far right guy, which makes it even more funny that he's Italian. I don't think I need to clarify here. But anyways, this guy is a former member of something called Project Veritas, which I've only loosely heard of before. I'll get into that. This Michael guy, he was accused of kissing and groping a former colleague, and a lawsuit was basically called out, and it was settled for $270,000. So basically, a guy of his ilk, he decided to bring on and hire, despite the fact that this was ongoing with this dude. What is Project Veritas? It's apparently a far-right, like fake news propaganda arm, which makes like they make doctored videos and audio clips and all that kind of stuff to try to push essentially conspiracy theories. Most of their endeavors have failed, unsurprisingly, but they still exist, and the funding is the most interesting part. They get funded through something called Donors Trust, which is basically a conservative money pot that the Koch brothers, or whatever the fuck they're called, they fund, and other mega wealthy either institutions or quote-unquote charitable like endowments, this kind of stuff. The general endowment for Donors Trust is over $200 million for all this fucking wacky far-right nonsense. Again, the amount of money that's fucking I promise you, at the height of like Soviet foreign, like positive foreign policy, where they're supporting political movements all around the world, this is only then did you see amounts that would get close to this.
Yeah.
Right? But in the United States, this is made for a fucking something that started like as a forum project. Whatever. It's just it's
you might remember
it's
Project
ridiculous.
Veritas they were one of their high profile things was in 2015, 2016, I think, where there was a fake video of like some nurse like cutting up a fetus or something, or like trying to sell aborted baby parts or something like that. And there was a huge hubbub about it. And that's what most people know Project Veritas for, I think.
I see.
But yeah, they've been around for a while, at least a decade now, and they're just constantly pushing literally fake videos and trying to whip the right up into a frenzy. It's very bizarre.
AI is coming for their jobs, I guess.
Yeah.
No, this was all I had for his. He has so many of them, but these are just the things I want to highlight. Specifically, that he dropped his junk on top of Jared's shoulder. That's the. We really need to. This is the title. This should be the title of the fucking podcast. He dropped his junk on top of Jared's shoulder.
That's a great idea. Okay, boys, it's time. I think I need to come clean. Here we go. I have never once heard Crowder's voice. I've never watched a video where
You're blessed.
This is something I really have trouble with. I've been doing this stuff on YouTube for quite a long time now, and I hadn't heard Jordan Peterson until the Up Yours Woke Moralists clip that was everywhere on Twitter, and that's still pretty much all I've heard from him, besides like the YouTube poop things where they just do like mashups and make him say stuff.
Like they put him in BioShock.
Yeah. Like that's the only thing, because I can't watch these things, because I watch them and then I'm going to earn myself my first ever bleep here. I am filled with just they are the worst human beings. Yeah. I can't do it. I can't watch them. I don't know how people hate watch. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm defective. But man, I've never been able to do it.
Nah, man. It's it takes a certain like hatred of yourself, I think, as well as just the sheer perseverance to be able to get through it. It's garbage. And the worst part about it is one is more like annoying than the other to listen to. Shapiro is the worst one. PragerU's like fucking overly moist but sometimes dry mouth irritates me. He seems like he always has fucking disgusting coffee breath, and he has the stupid chewy gums that it disgusts me. He strikes me, Mr. Penis Prager, or whatever the fuck his name is. He strikes me as the kind of guy that always tries to kiss his like grand nephew, niece or whatever, who's like 8 years old, and he comes in with lips. That's the kind of guy he strikes me as.
Yuck.
And it smells like dust. Crowder is again one of those, just very loud, obnoxious, and trying to overcompensate for his lack of masculinity by making a caricature of what a man is by doing this big fucking, Ben Shapiro does this thing where he just talks so quickly in hopes of being like, oh yeah, I'm saying bullshit, but I'm talking so quickly that you won't possibly catch it.
They're all just losers, though, which is so strange to me, because the right's whole thing is like they are the Ubermensch. They are strong. They are men. They are what the elite, but in the good way, like the physical elite. Like how do people watch little twerps like Ben Shapiro and be like, yeah, now that's a real man? It's like, these dudes have never picked up a weight in their lives. Like Ben Shapiro is like with his 2 small shirts carrying the single piece of wood from Lowe's. I'm like, this dude, a stiff wind would knock him over. Like, what? I don't get it.
Ben Shapiro though kind of swole though. Ben Shapiro is kind of swole now. I don't know if you've seen that video where he shows off his biceps. Ben Shapiro kind of swole. You don't fuck with poor Ben Shapiro like this.
Hey, good for him.
Life.
Good for him. It's
so there's many factors.
He's punching the air against female sexuality. Everybody was telling him that it's possible for a woman to be aroused. He's gearing up to fight the science.
Jesus
But,
Christ.
Yeah. Regardless, tying masculinity to physical strength is also can be problematic at times.
Of course.
Because that's what the right likes to do a lot.
Yeah.
Of course.
Well, that's all I mean. Like, I'm not saying it's legitimate. I'm just saying this is what their people believe about men. The people who watch them expect a certain kind of man.
Look, I'll share a hadith from the noble prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, where he said, "The strong is not the one who overcomes the people by strength, but the strong is the one who controls himself while in anger." And that's I think a very nice. Yeah, I think that's the kind of like at least my personal perception of what a man is. Also, of course, it's good to you should train. You should make yourself physically strong, make savage the body and sophisticate the mind, all that kind of stuff. As Mao said. But at the end of the day, I think it's that not yelling at your heavily pregnant wife because she doesn't want to give some medication to your dog and being like, "Oh no, but I'm the man. I have to put my foot down." This is not what And of course, by the way, interesting that his perspective at the same time inhabits, "Oh, I want to keep my wife down, but also I want to cross dress and then go into like campuses and interview people."
Yeah.
So maybe he's strangely progressive.
Progressive for me, but not for thee.
Exactly.
Chowder.
Right.
I mean, they all at this point have built specific audience types, right? You have Ben Shapiro, which is for the quasi-intellectual. You have Candace Owens for the minorities. You have, obviously, Crowder for people who consider themselves relatively edgy. You have fucking Tucker Carlson who is for like, the very classic conservative suit and tie guy. They have their whole little thing like properly distributed. But what's going to be interesting is that no matter how big the internet is, at one moment that market would need to be cornered. And when you're treating ideology exclusively as a business model, the way quite literally all of them do, and this has been proven thousands of times from internal communications and so on, from Carlson all the way down to Candace, at one moment they will understand that this market is not necessarily infinite, especially when targeting the US one. Tucker is already traveling around the world trying to spread that. He even met the fucking Serbian president or some shit the other month. That was weird, two of my worlds colliding. But sorry, straying from the topic. But yeah, at one moment they will realize that I don't know, in the last episode we were talking about imperial powers realizing that, you got to start physically fighting for certain markets because all of them are kind of taken. Right-wing social media personalities, news personalities, or whatever you want to call them, will have to engage in a sort of small war of attrition because they are driven not by ideological fervor or by the wish to see their world come to be, but most of them, I very strongly believe this when it comes to the American online right. I'm talking about these personalities, not online right-wingers, just are doing it in order to make the bigger buck. And we already see the consequence of this internal strife starting up. So in a way, the market really is self-regulating. The hand of the market is slapping around right-wingers by making them kill each other. But unfortunately, I don't think this will lead to the death of anyone's particular audience unless they do something that is so hardcore that the right rejects you, the way we had with that, what was his name, Greek name or some shit that ended up
Milo Yiannopoulos.
Milo Yiannopoulos, thank you, who went into pedophilia, and then you don't touch shit like that. So unless somebody really goes into something like that, right,
off the deep end.
Yeah, exactly. Reactionaries in their very nature are creatures of constant conflict, are creatures who feed off of thinking that they are in the right versus someone else. So this internal fighting might actually fuel many audiences where you have, big patriots of Crowder versus big patriots of Ben Shapiro, but also a very large crowd in the middle who kind of bounces in between because they want to be part of the so-called great discourse and so on. But we'll see what comes in the future as more and more personal scandals about these people come out. And as Hakeem said, this is not what needs to be super concisely targeted, because it doesn't at the end of the day really lead right-wing people away from them, again, except if it's pedophilia, even though Milo is kind of having a comeback. I remember him hanging out with Kanye West or some shit. Okay, whatever. But obviously the continuous infighting is creating a more fragmented image of them in the eyes of the so-called centrist, and that leaves space for a relatively more unified left than the one it is now. I'm talking especially online, of kind of eating that up. We'll see where it goes, but the likes of Crowder are not going to be removed anytime soon, because idiotic bro humor still works. Heavily patriarchal worldviews still work. Because literally selling a t-shirt, he probably made millions of it with Che Guevara on it, and writing socialism is for still works. And as long as there is reactionary sentiment in our societies, and as long as they keep decaying the way they do because of the market economy that we have so readily embraced, the more motherfuckers like this are going to sprout out, no matter how much infighting they might be doing as they're doing it.
Beautiful.
So yeah, just go out and that's what I'm saying. Like, everywhere, just all over the country. That would be a solution. If you can actually get into their studios and then upload the video to their channel.
This is going to be the most elaborate series of bleeps.
Exactly right. I'm like, Jesus Christ, you help me, please. Yes, and I agree 100%, very based. But sadly, our dear listeners will not get the full picture.
I get the idea.
With all this being said, Crowder is just another face in the sea of absolute chuds that permeate the internet space. These people are just hoping to get their chance to go and spread absolute dog shit, because it's incredibly easy. It's very lucrative, as you can see. And also, it is fulfilling to the weird quasi-nebulous political beliefs of these people, which always hover around very strange, like, oh, I'm a conservative Christian, but not like that. Also, I don't want immigrants, but my wife is Asian. And it's just a mishmash of contradictory beliefs. And all this, we need to remember, is a very bad attempt to maintain the status quo and then push a different kind of approach to the status quo. But regardless, it's all embedded in the same system, which is the capitalist system, and that's what allows this shit to be propagated. This is what allows this stuff to remain under nonsense, like very obviously racist and speech that is completely not okay, and clearly made with the intention of hurting others, and made to specifically isolate and attack individual ethnic groups or other groups of people. Not in jest, not in any way of actual critique, if that even is possible, in different extents, but specifically with the hopes of being racist or sexist or what have you. This is something that the capitalist system allows because there are ad bucks in it. Not only this, but also it is a supreme example of focusing on the culture war to distract you from the class war, which is what all of this eventually boils down to. So read some theory, organize, and try to forget the noise, but also dunk on it from time to time because it's very fun. With all that being said, this has been the Deprogram. I'm Hakeem.
I'm JT.
And I'm Ugopnik. And actually, it's a good thing that socialism is for
Jesus Christ.
Oh my god.
Come on, because we're inclusive as shit.